All right, everyone. Welcome again to the show that is Pound for Pound, the most power packed punch in podcast media, where we are smacking people upside the head with biblical truth that emanates into your personal, professional, and spiritual life. And I think we're about to smack some fools today. That's what it sounds like, anyway. I'm ready for it. Billy, you brought the topic, man. Kick off what's been pondering on your heart and what you've been reading, and because I think this is something that people really need to grasp, bro.
So it's a book that I actually just started reading yesterday. So it's all still kind of settling and processing in my brain. But it's a book my dad put me onto. It's called Practicing the Way, and it's a kind of the way that he described it. Was in all his years, this is the best book he's ever written. He didn't write it. Read. That kind of breaks down in a practical way what it means to be a follower of Christ and kind of what's expected of us as a follower of Christ. So I've been diving into it myself and just kind of getting through the first chapter last night when I had some time. It was talking about the difference between being a believer and being a disciple, and how he presented it. He kind of broke down the culture at the time, and we see the account of Peter and Andrew and Jesus saying, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men, and they just left everything. And we look at that, and it raises questions. Why? They're businessmen. This is their family business. They just left it. Why would they do that? How is that? Was that some big supernatural thing, or why did they do that? But in the culture, to be an educated person, you went through multiple levels of school, or you started on a path of multiple levels of school, and the first level, until you were like 12 years old, was referred to as the school of the book. I don't remember the Hebrew for it. But you basically had to memorize the first 5 books of the Old Testament. And you had to be an expert in the law and an expert in, these books of the Bible and so forth. And then from that point, there was a second level that was basically reserved for the best and the brightest. And most people never made it that far. And most people never got into that second level. And in that second level, you're really, you're diving into Scripture. And to get through that second level, now you have to have memorized the entire Old Testament. I barely have my full name memorized, much less the Old Testament. For people to get through that is exceedingly rare. And at that point, the idea is you would find a rabbi or a teacher whose teachings you supported, and you would hope that you could become one of their disciples. But you had to go through whatever interview process they had, whatever selection process they had, before they call you to be one. But it's, from a cultural sense, and in the sense of being, educated in that culture, that was like the pinnacle, was to get through that schooling so that you could become a disciple, so that you could learn how to be a rabbi. And one of the ways that he kind of presented all of this was, he said, take the word disciple and replace the word apprentice. So you're going to apprentice under a rabbi for a certain amount of time, and then hopefully after a certain amount of time, they say, you're ready. Now you can go, you are now a rabbi, you can go take disciples on of your own. So for Peter and Andrew, who maybe made it through that first level of school, maybe even didn't, to basically get called by a rabbi in that culture was a huge honor. And like nobody in that situation would have turned that down. Like they were absolutely. But then he started kind of breaking down, what does it mean to be an apprentice? And he didn't say, come and follow me. And Peter said, great, here's my work schedule, here's my previous commitments, here's some stuff we need to work around. It was, I'm following you because I'm going to live 24/7 with you, to be around you, to absorb as much as I can from you, and to learn to live like you. It was a lifetime commitment, because I'm devoting my entire life to figure out what it means to be like you and to respond to the world and to respond to sin and to respond to whatever gets thrown my way the way you would, so that I can one day be just like you and teach others. And we see that reflected through the New Testament, right? We see the calling of the disciples, and then we see that they live day by day with Jesus, and then we see the Great Commission where they're being sent out. And it's like, okay, you're rabbis now. You're the one that needs to go out and make disciples. And the the point that he's trying to make through that, like there was a stat that he threw out that I think it was like 63. It was mid to high 60s or so of people in the United States when polled that said that they were believers in Christ. When the same poll was given to the same number of people to say, are you a follower of Christ? 4%. And I think there's definitely merit to being a believer in terms of salvation, because that is absolutely a free gift, and we can't start traipsing into something that would be a works-based salvation. But it's that next step after being saved. You know, what are we being saved to? We're being saved to a life of being a disciple, and that's the step that so many people don't take. And he made a great comment, and I love the way he said it. He said that there's too many people who look at Christ as a delivery mechanism for atonement. And once that's been delivered, they're like, I'm good.
Yep.
You know, I'm set. My name's written. I don't have to do anything else. And in terms of salvation, there's an argument to be made there, because it is a free gift and it's not based on what we do. But once we receive that gift, it's how we respond to that gift. And the expectation of how we respond to that gift is to be a disciple of Christ, meaning we are living day by day, doing everything we can to be around him, to learn from him, to figure out what it means to live like him and apply that on a daily basis.
What did you take that from that for you, Billy? What was the bit that caught you on the jaw? Or
I think that the biggest thing was, you know, like how do we move forward? You know, and I think that's kind of the big question. Is there's a lot of people that are, you know, like what now? Especially when you're dealing with adults and you have guys that are, you know, new Christians, guys that come to the faith later in life, and they're like, okay, now what do I do? How do I move forward? And I feel like, you know, I'm talking about other people, but I feel like we can't really truly help somebody answer that question unless we're modeling that. That's what Christ called us to do, is to be an example, you know, and to teach by example and let other people see the love of Christ and see the life of Christ in you. And what I find myself often doing, even if it's something that I'm good at or I've been doing a long time, it's kind of reminding myself of what the basics are and kind of relearning the basics so that I never get too far from the fundamentals. And I think that's what really struck me about the, you know, kind of diving into the book in the first place. But, you know, that chapter I think was a real good attention getter, a real good way of kind of calling out, you know, yes, you have been saved, and yes, believing in Christ is the source of your salvation. And I believe very heavily in that, and I believe a lot in the theology of the thief on the cross. And, you know, the thief on the cross was not called to a different life. He was dead within a couple hours. And yet, Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise. There's a separate conversation to be had for salvation, but it's how do you respond in such a way, and I think this is what really hit me, is how do we respond in such a way that we are honoring God for the gift that he gave to us. You know, people have asked me, you know, you say you're saved, what are you saved from? I'll tell you exactly what I'm saved from. I'm saved from an eternity in hell.
Yep.
And when you look at what I could have been doing for eternity and how I've been saved from that, there's an appropriate response. You know, when somebody does something for you, you know, it's customary to say, hey, thank you, you know, or it's customary to do something in response. When somebody lays down their life and dies for you to ensure that you don't go to hell for eternity, there should be a response of appreciation and honor for the one who laid down his life for us. And how we do that the right way, I think, is very important. And I've been hit so many times lately, over the last year and a half, with the verse, "Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourself." And I think that all of that goes hand in hand. Being a doer of the word means being a disciple of Christ. It doesn't mean paying lip service to the gospel and saying, I'm saved, I said the sinner's prayer, so I'm good. We need to be doers of the word, and that's how we're doers of the word, is to become a disciple, because that's, truth be told, that's what we were called to do.
Yeah, Billy, I was just going to respond and say that I think that, I can only speak for myself. When it comes to being saved, it's it was a response of I had to tell people, right? It's like God made me a disciple. And I think that's lost sometimes because people are kind of like robots walking down on an altar call and yep, I was saved. I went down there. I mean, do you know how many altar calls I went down on prior to being saved?
Hmm.
I mean, it always makes me question because you can see when God impacts your life. I mean, it's very visible. It's like this when he talks about your heart becomes new and it's new inside your body. How do you explain that to somebody other than sharing the miracle that happened? Like I started noticing every other word was the F word with me. Now I still throw out an F word here and there, but nothing like I was. Because now I was being convicted in my spirit like I probably shouldn't be talking like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then I also had a pure joy and happiness of sharing, whereas before I didn't share anything because I wanted to be cool. I didn't the last thing I wanted to ever say is, man, I love Jesus. Now I say it because I am cool, because cool people do love Jesus. You see the difference? It's like God came in and showed me the magic of Him. There's two forces in the world. One force doesn't ever want you to talk about Jesus. The other force wants you to talk about Him all the time because you love Him. And I think that's to whom much is given, much is required. So,
Hmm.
what is required by people who have experienced this? Share exactly what happened to you, that miracle that happened to you that can sink into other people, especially the fresh people. Maybe somebody did go in on an altar call. Are we supposed to just say high five them and way to go, stud? Everything good? No, man. You're under attack, bro. Come with me. Let's get you into the brotherhood. Let's make you a soldier. Let's start to understand that that word needs to sink into you. It didn't sink into me. I had to spend some time in the word to understand that God was really coming after me and I hadn't really accepted him yet. There was a wall there. And it wasn't until I got to that point where I felt his spirit, the morning I woke up and he said, "Today is the day." I could hear him talking in my ear. "Today is the day." I'm like, "Is that you, Lord? I'm just brushing my teeth right now, man." Okay, I'm okay, God. As I walk into my car, "No, Jeff, you don't understand. Today is the day." And I kept fighting it, thinking I could lose him walking into my car, lose him by, driving down the street. I finally just gave up and said, "Okay, Lord, you got me, man. I read everything. I believe it." And boom, that's when my heart changed. It wasn't an altar call. It could be. It could be I mean, it could be when you're praying with a friend and you accept them right there. See,
Yep.
only you, that's between you and God. Right? Now, I believe discipleship comes from that because there's a huge responsibility. And once you are understanding that, why in the heck wouldn't you share that magic and that miracle? Right?
Hmm.
I think people maybe haven't experienced God that way. That's my thing, is I don't know that you experienced it that way. Maybe you have. That's between you and God. I only know my testimony.
Mm.
right? I only know what worked for me. I only know what God did in my life. So, but I agree with
Yeah.
you. I think being a believer and being an apprentice are two different things. You know, even we talked about this before, even the devil and all of his followers are believers,
Hmm.
right? They know about God, they know the scripture, they know
Hmm.
the right verses, they know
Hmm.
all of that. But do they have that, their new heart, right? I'd say no,
Right.
right? And so that's where to whom much is given, much is required. When you know what you know, man, you want to share. It's like you're automatically becoming a leader and you didn't even know it. So,
I mean,
Strikes
do you
me
guys
this.
think people
Oh, sorry.
really? No, I was just going to ask if you guys do you guys people think people really understand the gift they've been given? I don't know. I don't think a lot of people do, and that's part of the gap, right?
Well, I think it's because of the sensationalism of Christianity, especially now. I think it's actually starting to be cool to be a Christian. And now,
Right.
before, 4 years ago, you were castrated, and today you are. It's been flipped. Now, I think that God will use all of that in each season. But I think the scary part is the sensationalism of Christianity, as it is once you rub the genie in the bottle and ask Christ into your heart, everything else is going to become given to you, all the things of the world, right? And you're going to have a great time. It's kind of scary there too, and it's like that's where it gets to where we have to live separate from the world, not to be a part of the world. And it's I don't know that it's a fine line.
No.
I think it's a complete separation from the world, and that's the difference. How do we separate? I've been discipling, I guess you could say, a couple guys at work and praying with them. They're calling me, crying, and it's been really good. God has been using me to just pour into their lives, and I hear the word Christianity and church and all the things just thrown around like it's just an easy way to speak, and then the way they live their lives is completely different. Like you said, cussing left and right, just completely living a whole different lifestyle, more towards the world. And I think, and there's no condemnation. I'm not condemning them. I'm loving them where they're at because I'm not perfect. Just like Jeff said, I'll throw a bomb out once in a while too. I stub my toe, or a dog eats another dog's food, and I get mad. But we're you laugh because it's true, right?
It's funny.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think the sensationalism of Christianity is it's again it gets we're why did I'm reading this book to go along with Billy said is the seven letters of the church, and God or Jesus used these seven churches that weren't even talked about except for Ephesus and maybe one of the other ones, but the other churches no one heard about. Yet he used these churches for the end times. It was for us. These churches were for us. These churches are today, and there's a lot of lukewarm churches. There's a lot of sensationalism, and we as Christians need to show what separation looks like, and we have to live it every day.
Rob, what you got, bro?
So it strikes me there's an ascension of levels, right? In some
Yeah.
respects, that there's a being saved and fully bringing Jesus and God into your world and knowing what that feels like. There's then something in Mark 12, and I think it's Mark 12:30, if my mind's where Jesus is asked, like, what's most important? And he says, love, O Lord Israel, love, O Lord God, love, O Lord our God with all our heart. And then he's asked, what's next? And it's love thy neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's those two bits. I think the next bit, the challenge after that, is that's almost then identifying that you want to become a plumber when you finish school, right? You identify that you want to become a plumber and you're going to go on an apprenticeship and you start out as not a plumber and 3 or 4 years later, you're going to become a plumber, right? You're going to go on a journey to become a plumber. The challenge for most people is that journey requires fundamental identity change at the core of who you are. You will be a different person in every aspect of your life and in every relationship in your life, and some relationships might not come out the other side of it.
Yep.
And I think that it's not, do people want to go on the journey or do the apprenticeship or not? I honestly think that they're terrified. That's what I honestly think is, and then we go back to 365 times, do not be afraid. But I mean, I honestly think that they're terrified because in their deepest heart, they know this. They know that to be like Jesus, what be like Jesus, what does that mean? That's poles apart from where all of us are today, right? Well, it is for me anyway. It's like he's at the South Pole and I'm at the North Pole, and there's a journey to go on. That's scary. And for a lot of people, it's a journey they feel like they have to do on their own. That's the starting point. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, and I think that I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's prior to accepting the Lord. Like, it's when you accept the Lord, he like gives you this fearless spirit. It's like, and you're right. People see that fear. That's why they don't come to the Lord. Probably one of the biggest reasons why they never come, because they're scared. They're either scared that the Lord's going to make them do something that they don't want to do, or they're scared of what people think. But when you actually become a believer, he gives you, what is that verse that talks about not having the spirit of fear? You don't have the spirit of fear anymore, right? He gives you something totally different, and that's why you're able to talk to people, because you don't have that. But prior to, I 100% agree with you, Rob.
Yeah, man. And I don't think that most, I will say most, I'm going to go out on a limb. Bobby, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I should say there are very few churches out there that are actually focused on creating disciples. They're actually doing a good job of that. And I'm not here to criticize any church because they have a hard job. You know what I mean? But I mean, Gene and I, we've been actually toying with the idea of potentially looking for another church. We're not going to be like withdraw ourselves from our church and not be members anymore or whatever. But I mean, we've gotten to a point now where it's like we are on Sundays, we're not going anymore. Like we're watching other pastors online and a couple of different services. You know what I mean? Because we are seeking more substance, we are seeking to learn more. And again, our church does a good job. They do a decent job. But I don't even think they're really doing a great job as much as they try. And I know the effort is there and I know they're sincere, but I just don't see it. And maybe it's a flaw within me. I don't know, but I just don't, we're kind of just floating around right now. You know what I mean? Trying to get real substantive, disciple inspiring substance on a weekly basis. And we're seeking it elsewhere. We're not getting dressed and going 7 minutes down the road. You know what I mean? Like, I know, Bobby, you've experienced this.
Maybe maybe the job changes though, right? The churches are out there just trying to get as many believers as possible. That's effectively what they're doing. That's what they're running around doing. Maybe this job comes as once you are a disciple. Actually, our job within the church changes to help believers become disciples. And as opposed to being a consumer at church, we become a contributor. And maybe that's like a missing part. And I wrestle this with myself. I preach on occasions, but in all honesty, I really value the Sunday morning time to sit there and like refill my cup. It's quite important to my week. And I'm being
Right.
called at the moment from the congregation to step up and start thinking about, can we head the Sunday school for the kids? And I'm like, I don't know.
Mhm.
But maybe the job changes once you become a disciple. Maybe it is about finding that cup filling opportunity somewhere else, and understanding that what the church is there for isn't what it once was when we were still on that becoming an believer journey.
Yeah.
I got it was actually given to me as a warning many years ago by my pastor when I was actually taking a staff position at another church. And so leaving the church where I was, the pastor said, you have to be careful about whose authority you put yourself under. And, I've never forgotten that warning. And, like even in this book, one of the things that they were talking about when somebody gets through all that schooling, they're looking for a rabbi who teaches what they want to learn, because not every rabbi taught the same thing the same way. And I think that there's a lot of merit to the idea of questioning where you are and whether it's the kind of environment where you want to be and if you're under the right authority. Because if you're a part of that church and you're under the authority of the leadership of that church and the senior leader of that church, because God puts one authority over that church, and it's the senior pastor. And I think there's merit to kind of questioning where you are and making sure that that's where you're supposed to be. And if it is, I think, to Rob's point, and I forget who said it, but it's something I heard recently, which is just be the change. Be the change that you want to see in that church. And if what you're seeing is that there's not a discipleship program, or there's not a good way of forming disciples or helping people understand what to do, you can be that change. One of the things about this book, I keep coming back to it, but it's a great book to read, but it also has a class that goes along with it, and a curriculum and a workbook that goes along with it, so you can lead it as a class in a church. Who's to say that you don't step in and say, hey, I'd love to lead this class on what it means to be a disciple? So if you feel like you're in the right place, but you want to see more, to Rob's point, maybe that's the call that you have on you as a disciple to step up and be that change.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know that, and maybe I'm not seeking it enough. I don't know, but I just don't. Neither one of us really feel led to really serve in that manner. I don't know. She already leads her own group here, of all these ladies that go to the church, and she's what we're talking about. She's actually doing on a weekly basis, you know. So she felt led to do that, and she does really well at it. Everybody loves it, and everybody actually they're the ones who have stayed are seeing the the fruits of it in their lives, which is really inspiring, honestly. And I think Rob, you said it. You may not have the same friends on the other side. You know, this group, it started with, I don't know. I mean, there's a total of like 15 ladies, and a few of them they never come anyway. Um, and there have been a few that have like come back here and there intermittently, but then they're like, okay, now they're gone again. Um, it's funny because you know, Gina asked me, she goes, like, I don't know. She gets self-conscious after everybody leaves because she likes substance. She really, really values truth. Um, and there's sometimes people get called out in this group when it's necessary. You know what I mean? In a healthy biblical way. And a few of the ladies can't handle that. You know what I'm saying? It's not condemnation. It's just, hey,
Correction.
we love you. We're just going to tell you, we're telling you what the deal is and what it really says in the word, you know? So she always questions herself afterwards. Was I too harsh? Was I this? Was I that? You know what I mean? And I just looked at her and it was just reactionary almost, as if the Holy Spirit just said to tell her this. But I said, look, babe, you've already shed the fat in this group. You have to realize for the longest time now, the core group that has stayed, and that's like 8 or 10 of them, you know what I mean? They want to be here. They continue to come back. And again, you have shed the fat already. So keep that in mind, and they still keep coming back. But again, it's not your job. It's your job to preach. It's your job to deliver what God is telling you to deliver in the studies. It's not your job to have 15 people instead of 10. That's not the goal. You know what I mean? And so as you said, Rob, like churches are focused on getting more Christians. But I mean, I don't know if it is, but I mean, is that really their job technically? Or is it to make disciples? Right? Of you see what I'm saying?
And that's such a difficult thing because there's so many facets to a church, and
Right.
and if you're not in the church business, it's hard to see that. But the church is a business. There's an electric
Oh
bill
yeah.
to pay. There's a water bill to pay. There's rent, or a mortgage payment to pay, and there is a business to the church. And like when I was in Bible college, one of the degree programs was in church business, because there are specialties that you have to be able to keep the doors open and keep the lights on. Ultimately, though, the role of the church, business aside, is to make disciples, because that was the Great Commission. Not every business does a good job at being a business. If they
That's
did,
right.
Rob wouldn't have a job.
Right.
Not every church is good at being a church business, the same as everything else. Every church suffers from the same problem that every other church does, and every church suffers from the same problem that every business does, and that's the fact that it's full of people and it's run by people, and
Yep.
people aren't perfect, and people make mistakes. So sometimes churches lose sight of what the core mission is because they've got to keep the lights on, and there's a balance there that they're struggling to find. And each church is going to be kind of on a different path, or a different focus of that struggle. Sometimes they're focused a little too much on going to the affluential neighborhoods, and not going to the areas that you're there to serve, but going across town to where you can hand out some flyers to people in a bigger money part of town, because you need that tithe base coming in. And I've seen that. And sometimes you're a little too far one way, and sometimes you're a little too far the other way,
Yep.
and you're not focused on keeping the doors open, and if you're not, then they're not going to stay open. So it's a difficult thing, and it's one, unfortunately, especially for the church, that invites so much judgment, because as soon as you do it wrong, people are all over you.
Yeah.
Because people want to see you fail. The world wants to see you fail. And it's a hard thing, and it's a hard line to toe for them.
So Billy, can I ask you a question about this real quick? And again, I'm not coming from a place of judgment, if you will, but you've seen the inner workings. I know Bobby has seen the inner workings. And I don't want to sound critical because I'm not in their shoes, but like and forgive me if it's simplistic, but if these leaders of churches have been called and they know that they have been led to lead a church and start a church and all that good stuff, then if that is the foundation, then like I guess I'm why do the other things if you're supposed to lean on God in faith for him to provide everything your church needs? You see what I'm saying? Like,
No, I definitely see what you're saying.
I might not be asking it right. I don't know.
Well, and I've always been a firm believer that prayer goes hand in hand with appropriate action.
But yeah, of course. You don't sit there and not raise money, of course, but you sit on the couch.
And I think the goal of where somebody needs to be, and to a small extent, I got to kind of experience this in a trial by fire last fall, and it was a ministry event that I was directing, and it was, it wasn't quite the same as, like long term trying to keep a church open or something like that. But what I really took from that was that it was a master class in sort of relearning how to trust God. And it was a great reminder of just focus on me, focus on what I've told you to do, and all this other stuff is gonna come in. Now, there were specific things that I still needed to do as the director of this event, like coordinating a team and bringing people together to be on the team to put on this event. And I remember it started on Thursday, and there was a point on Thursday afternoon. We're getting everything set up, and the guy comes to me, and I mean, this kid's like 21, something like that, young guy. And he said, "Hey, has everybody been able to pay? Has everybody been able to cover their registration and stuff?" And I said, "No, we've got, guests that are coming that haven't been able to pay. We've got team members that haven't been able to pay." And he's just like, "Oh, here." And starts handing me wads of cash, hundreds. And then the two guys with him were like, "Oh, yeah, here, you just take it, use it for whatever you want." Forked over like $1,000 on the spot. And, for a small event, that's a huge amount of money that they were just like, they felt led to give it, but they wouldn't have been in that position if I hadn't recruited them to be on the team in the first place. So there's tactical things that I still needed to do and people that I needed to include on this team. And at the same time, there's that trust that I needed to have of just do the things that I need you to do and I'll do the rest. And it was a real blessing to see that happen. But I think one thing that's really important to this is I'm human and I needed that reminder. And I think that happens at the church level too. And yes, you're right. If God calls somebody to lead a church, he's going to do his part to support that church. The church staff and the church members still have their part to play to support that church. And sometimes when times get tough, especially, it's easy for somebody who's human, which should be all of us, to start to kind of lose that trust a little bit and to start letting worry creep in because the enemy's going to do that. And God gives you that reminder and reminds you, here, no, you can trust me. And as you get stronger and stronger and stronger in that faith and in that trust, I think that's where the church is going to thrive more. And it's when people start to lose that trust and say, I got to go get a bank loan or something, or something. And they start doing things the wrong way because they try to short circuit God because they don't trust that the miracle's coming or that the support is coming. I think that that's just a human thing that happens to anybody in whether it's church leadership or ministry leadership or just our daily lives. We're on that back and forth kind of struggle of God's trying to pull us one way, but the enemy's always trying to pull us back. So we have to keep that focus and we have to recognize that the enemy is back there trying to pull us back. And if we don't intentionally keep that focus, then we could be pulled back. A great quote, again, that I saw from this book was, if you're not intentionally led by God, then you will be unintentionally led by somebody else. And if you're not focusing on God during those times and you're not allowing him to lead you, then you can be and will be pulled back by the enemy, led by worry, led by fear, led by all these things that are not of God. So yeah, I do believe that you fundamentally, God's going to provide and God's going to equip and God's going to give you the ability to manage that church. But you have to trust and you have to understand that this is God's church, right? You're not there for numbers. You're not there for paying the bills, right? You're not there for all that. You're there to be a conduit through which God can build that church. Maybe he wants that church to be 40 core people. And you're sitting there whining because you've got all these churches down the road that have thousands of people every Sunday. Why don't I have that? Maybe you're not designed to have that. Maybe you're not supposed to have that. It's such a hard thing sometimes as a human to keep your eye and keep your focus on this is God's ministry and he's going to build it his way. Maybe it's supposed to be small. Maybe it's supposed to be big. Who knows? But it all goes back to that trust. And sometimes that trust is hard.
How many pastors have we seen after years of being pastors be attacked, by the enemy, whether it's true or not? The enemy can use things to, destroy a church. And it's really important that you're in the Word all the time. you know. So I used to have this, it reminds me of this dream I used to have when I was first a Christian. It was, I felt like I was attacked in my dreams from Satan himself. And man, I was so scared of Satan. And I remember it started off with a big Great Dane dog that used to come and he would attack me, you know, in my face. And man, I'd be so scared. I remember as I progressively got more mature in my walk, you know, with Christ. And I had this last dream years and years ago of I felt the enemy's presence in my dream. And he had come up close to me from behind. I knew it was him. And he turned around and he screamed in my face. And I was not afraid anymore. And I just looked at him and I said, "You're nothing. You can't touch me." And I said, "Be gone with you, you know, in the name of Jesus." I never had that dream again. And it's because I believe it's because of my getting closer to the Lord, really understanding where my power was in Him, not me. Whereas in the beginning of my walk, this is where a lot of Christians, you know, how they say, you know, falls on weeds and the root has not gone deep yet, and sometimes maybe you never had the root in the first place, right? I believe I had the root, but I needed a mentor, I needed a coach, I needed somebody who kept me in that word, so that I started to understand where the power came from. It didn't come from me, it came from the Lord. And once I understood that, and I went, wow, He's the one who protects me and guides me. He's my hedge of protection. Things changed. I never had those dreams again. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Something our church
So,
does very well is every Sunday morning we're asked for our God moments. And we're quite a small church, like we have 40 to 50 people, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. So it's quite small. But we're asked for our God moments and asked to stand up and contribute them as well. And I think that like last Sunday I was pretty down, and I'll tell you a testimony in a second, but I was pretty down. But to sit there and have people share their God moments, farmers who shared that fact that it's actually rained and we've been going through a big drought over the past quite a lot of months, and it's rained and they've had enough rain and the sheep are now eating green grass. Like to hear that, and all they've done is prayed for months. To hear other people and their God moments, it fills that cup to be able to keep moving forward, to push away from the enemy and pull ourselves closer towards Him. And I think that a lot of churches that I've been to in the past miss that opportunity. Great message from a pastor or two, but the God moments aren't often, they aren't congregational real, as in Jeff says, in the past week, this happened, and I've been waiting for this to happen and praying for this to happen, and here it is, right? And because Jeff sat 5 people down from me at the church, I can kind of reach out and touch him, and it's real and it's tangible and it's there. And I think if more churches do that, they will probably get more disciples or more apprentices, because it becomes real. It's not a hypothetical anymore, or there's a famous person over there who this happened to. It's like it is Jeff. But I want to share a quick testimony, if that's okay. And this just came to me. And Brad, you know part of the struggle with this, but the other 3 of you don't. My Meta or Facebook ad accounts for Kingdompreneur got permanently disabled 10 days ago for religious extremism. And as you can see, I am a religious extremist. You can see that with all. That's definitely. I must be one. And they got disabled, and we've lost a lot of money, and we lost our pixel, which is the sort of the bit that trains Facebook on what clients to send you and whatever else. And I had a pretty bleak for 4 or 5 days, if I'm to be honest. We spent a lot of time building that and a lot of money building that. And let's not go into the amount, but it hurts a lot. And so I went back and started fixing some things and trying to clean our profiles and get it attached to new ad manager accounts through new email addresses. It's a lot of work. And then I went back old school and I was like, right, we've got an event on the 6th of March. There's no way that those paid for ads is going to get me the people in that period of time, right? It just isn't possible. So I just started writing a list of names, right, through my iPhone, list of names, people to contact. And I contacted one guy, and the message I was sending is, you know me, I know you, I'm doing this event. If you've got people who want to come, could you spread it to your network? And I sent it to one guy called Rudolph. And Rudolph said to me, yeah, I'll tell a few people, but Tuesday morning, and that's this Tuesday just coming, I'm meeting all my clients. There's about 1,000 of them. Meeting them online. Do you want to come and do a Q&A with them and then pitch your event to them? And I will tell them all that I'll be there and that they need to come and meet me, come meet you, and I'll back you. And that happened once. And then I sent a message to another guy called David. He said, oh, I've got a community. I tell you what, come along and tell them about this as well. I'll tell them I'll be there, and then he's come along and hang out with me, and I'll back you. And we went from 20 people at the event to about 60 now, and I've got 2 big those meetings coming up in the next week. And we've managed to re-engage Meta on a slightly less pushy marketing basis. Apparently, if you use the word elite before Christian business owners, that's extremist. You can't use that. So I've got to go and manage my language better. But it's coming together. And I think
Praise
we all
God.
need to hear those stories more often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough of that going on.
Yeah, and it's free. You're getting your event filled for free.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
I used to lead this thing called testimony time in my church. I don't know if I brought this up before, but right before the service started, I would lead it, share about God so we could hear people's testimony and really set the pace for how the message came. And I had, it was really weird. I would do a lot of praying because I felt a sense of responsibility to not say what I was thinking, right? To have God speak through me somehow. And there was a guy in the back who had showed up, and he was pretty, he was not put together. He looked a bit crazy, like he had just come off the street. And I could see him raising his hand in the back, and I kept drifting over so I didn't have to pick on him, right, to share during this testimony time. But God was really pressing on my heart that I should call on this guy. Oh, man, I don't want to, man. Like, there's good people in this church, and my spirit of rebellion. So I finally went, you in the back. He goes, do you mind if I sing a song? And I'm like, come on up here. I gave him the mic, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I just do?
Here we go.
I gave this guy the mic. Well, he sang the most beautiful song and crushed the hearts of the congregation. And he walked out of that church, and I never saw him again. I never saw him again. And I thought to myself, was that for me to see? I know God worked on every single heart, but for me, it was like God telling me, just trust me. Was that like an angel that he sent that day in the church for me to trust him? Do you see what I'm saying? So then the testimony of that is, yeah, God is real every single day of our lives, and we don't share enough of them.
Amen.
Mhm.
We just
Amen.
don't.
That's so good.
You know, the word says that we're overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. You know, we get bogged down so much. I mean, even just in day-to-day lives and day-to-day routines. But I mean, you guys are nailing it. That's how we overcome. You know, being an overcomer doesn't mean you have to overcome some massive obstacle.
Right.
It just means you're overcoming something, some obstacle, something that's holding you back, something that's in your way. And it could be just that day-to-day, you know, I heard somebody describe it a while back as an oatmeal day. It's just, there's nothing good, there's nothing bad, it's just kind of bland, you know, but just to be able to even get past those neutral days and just kind of get your focus back. It's the word of our testimony. It's the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And our testimonies build ourselves up when we remind ourselves of it, but it builds other people up when we remind them too. So I mean, you're nailing it. Those being able to share those God moments, whether it's in a predetermined time in a service, or whether it's just over coffee, or whether it's just calling somebody saying, "Hey man, I just want to share what God did for me." You never know the kind of encouragement that's gonna give to somebody to help overcome.
Mhm. Bob Dog, I'm curious about your thoughts, bro, because like, you know, I know you've talked about it many times, and I don't, you know, you do you, but like, what's your thoughts on, because that's a huge bridge, man, between being just a believer or a Christian, quote unquote, and then being a disciple. Like that's a long bridge. You know what I mean? How do we shorten that bridge? And like, how do we, like, because bro, I got to be honest with you, man. Like, since we reconnected, like however many years ago, I was still living in the Northwest, and you know, I'll be honest, I didn't take everything you were saying super serious. I listened, but I didn't really like apply it like I should. So you just wasted a
Sounds
lot
like
of
my
time.
wife. Yeah, good times.
Woo!
I'm kidding.
No. Oh, she heard that?
No.
Oh. Okay. I was like, is she looking at you like?
No. I'm not stupid.
Well, okay, good. So,
Uh-oh.
but I mean, you know, again, we
I'm
had
kidding.
good conversations.
I am kidding. I love you. Yeah, she did hear
Oh,
that.
Oh no. Oh man. Boy, all right, never mind. She's a former Air Force veteran with super top security clearance who probably knows how to hurt him a little bit. So he's probably in trouble after this.
The eagle eyes.
Right. But you know, I listened, and I listened, but probably did not apply. I know the little nuggets here and there over time. But I still, even to this day, man, I still keep going back to some of the things that you've shared with me in those conversations. So it wasn't for nothing. And to be honest with you guys, this is my conscious struggle. I'm always consciously aware of this divide. And I'm always trying to consciously say to myself, okay, how do I keep myself in the good relationship and the disciple side of the fence versus just being a person who professes to believe but doesn't act that way? You know what I mean? Like, so Bobby, what's your thoughts, man, on bridging that gap, and anything else that you know, that's beneficial for anybody leading groups, churches, whatever, man, because you've seen it too.
Well, let's first go back to that time that we started getting rekindling our friendship.
Sounds really bad, dude. Reword that.
No, but you know, I remember that very well, and you fought it really hard. I mean, you literally fought it, like verbally fought it, like, no, it's not for me. It's not for me. But this is the testimony of we're having a podcast where you are leading the podcast as the host of what was prophetically given to you at that moment. And now you fast forward to 3-4 years later, and God is using you. So
Yeah.
there is the reason why we put those seeds out there, put those nuggets out there, because there's the 30, 60, 100 fold, right, in the church. So we talk about churches that we can grow out of a church spiritually. It's okay. It's still good for the 30 fold. It's maybe still good for the 60 fold, but maybe you're at 100 fold, and maybe you're just you need more spiritually, right? And then that's where maybe if you can't, again, this is my personal conviction as I'm speaking this live right now, is that my struggle has been, I have become, you've heard of the term quarterback couch quarterback. Y'all heard of that term? Like, I mean, I'm an ex-athlete and I can watch a game. I'm like, why didn't you show to that? Why didn't you hit that pass? Why didn't you do that route?
Right.
Easy from the comfort of my couch. And I can do that. We do that, I think, as Christians, that, I'm sitting here on my couch, comfortable as a Christian, and I'm kind of looking at preachers going, why would you say that? Why would you do that? Why would you throw that out there? Why would you ask for that specific message? Because it doesn't make sense, but it wasn't for me. And so I'm sitting here being a quarterback preacher, couch quarterback preacher, if you will. Bad analogy, but it's very truth. And yet my personal conviction is I've kind of stopped going to churches because, and shame on me, because I wasn't getting enough out of it. But maybe it's because I'm not making enough change within the church. Maybe I'm not doing enough inside that church to make change within the community. And so that's on me. So, you were talking about maybe this church isn't for you, or maybe that church isn't for me. But the enemy wants to divide us and to create division within the church. And I think my personal conviction, and it's probably, I'm kind of ranting, but my personal conviction is this: I need to find a church, good, bad, or indifferent, where that God can use me for the knowledge that I have and the spiritual awareness that I have. It may not be for what I receive, but it may be through I can work within the church to help disciple, as we say, right? And I've kind of walked away from it because God, I'm like, I'm going to be I'm going to be disciples in my work. I'm going to be disciples in my family. I'm going to do this. But you know what? My family loves going to church. I'm not a big church guy because, of the politics and all the stuff. But my family's suffering because they don't like watching it on TV. They don't like doing all that. And I'm like, we all need to be assemble one another, right? So my personal conviction live right now is like, I got to get back to the church, not necessarily the four walls, but so that, not that I could receive something, but I can maybe help within the church. I don't know, man. It sounds like a big rant right now, but I don't know if that resonates with anybody.
I'll ask
I
you a
think that
question.
makes perfect sense. Yeah. And the thing that hits me, and I'm sorry, I'm stepping on somebody, but the thing that hits me is, God didn't come for those who are well. God came for the sick.
That's right.
And I think He sends us the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a good gut check that we need to do to make sure that we're not going to church to be a consumer.
Yep.
I think there is merit to making sure that you're in the right place and you're learning from the right people and you're in the right body.
Yep.
But we also have to keep in mind that we're not going to church for us. We're going to church to glorify God. You don't have to worry about the politics. You don't have to worry about the stuff going on in the background and all that. You're going to glorify God.
Amen.
It's just like, paying your tithe. I pay my tithe to glorify God. If the church misuses that, shame on them. It's not up to me to worry about that. It's up to me to be obedient and to give the tithe in the first place, even if they're going to misuse it, because that glorifies God in my own life. And being somewhere where you can glorify God and being in the right place is where that starts. But I think you're also right. It's maybe you're going to find yourself in a place where you didn't expect that that's the church that you would be going to, but maybe it's because that church is the sick that he needs to send you to help out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had a question.
What were you
for
going to
Robbie,
say,
you were
Rob?
going to say something.
What would happen if you were to sow your own church?
Whew, I know he ain't doing prophecy here today. We talked about smacking some people around, Bobby. It looks like it's you.
Well, the sad thing is that's been my battle, my fight against not doing it. I don't.
Hold on a second. Oh, hold on. Hold on, Rob. You brought your business coach into this thing now. So now we're gonna pull it out. So are you telling me that you have been like kind of led to start like your own church?
Yeah, for many years.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I can see it.
Yeah,
I definitely have the ability.
Well, I don't think I do, but that's just, I think the thing is that I was prophesied when I was young in my early 20s, and I've been fighting that ever since, like fighting it, because I am not equipped. I'm not to where because I look at that high level standard, and then I'm just not there. But yet I see other preachers, to what Brad, you and I talk about offline, is, the infallible preachers out there, but yet I'm not even better, and I don't want to be up there misleading that. And it's such a high level, like that is like the ultimate commitment. Like that is like, once you hit that commitment, like that's the pinnacle of the highest level you can ever get. I mean, you could have like literally, you can own billions and billions of dollars be the CEO, the richest person in the world. It's still not as high as that level of commitment.
You're talking about the level of responsibility. I get it,
bro. Yeah.
I get it. But I know Rob has more questions.
Yeah, he's good.
I think we're all kind of sitting in our seats with pants in our pants right now, Bob. You unfortunately,
he's good.
Unfortunately, are on the hot seat right now, brother.
Yeah, we good. We can move on.
No.
Let me share something.
I just know he has another question. I know he has another question or four.
Let me share something. People have started calling me Pastor Rob recently. And I was like, I'm not a pastor, I'm a business coach. I'm a really good business coach, one of the best in the world. I'm not a pastor. And then a pastor sat me down and said, you do know if you preach in front of a group of believers, that's called a church. And then the person at the front who does the preaching part's called the pastor, don't you? I was like,
Yep.
I used to listen to, I still do listen to this guy. He's dead now, but he's a very successful businessman. Do you know what his favorite topic was? God versus Satan.
Yeah.
So he can talk for hours on it. And I'm sure you can umbrella that conversation for hours and hours.
God doesn't call the competent, he calls the called.
Yeah.
Amen.
He will support you to gain every element of competence you could ever need and want to go and do the thing you've been called to do. And so I think this goes back to discipleship for me really is submission. And like I've submitted over the past 18 months more than I have in my entire 48-year existence. And, I've closed businesses. I've done all sorts of mathematically bonkers things. But this submitting to the calling, I think that's the bit we're all really scared of, because we know that's the identity change part. That's the bit where actually the world changes, and we don't know what's on the other side. The only thing I could do, Bobby, is offer you, in my 18 months of actually submitting control of my life and just giving it to him, it has been the most extraordinary, rewarding, miracle-filled time that now people call me Pastor Rob. That's bonkers. Um, and I don't know if that's any help to you, but he calls the called, not the competent. Maybe we could just let
I
go
also
and
want
see
to.
what happens. Go on, Jeff.
There's a being side of you that was created in the womb. You know, Psalm 139 talks all about that being wonderfully crafted. Even your members were perfectly made. Um, and also talks about how God thinks about you more than there are grains of sand
Hmm.
on the earth. So how do you, if you were to judge yourself as a being, you know, on a scale between 1 and 10, where would you say you were at right now?
-10.
Okay, see, this is exactly the greatest point. This is not just for Bobby, this is for every single one of
Yeah.
us. Okay? The world told you that. See, God has already decided you're a 10. But unfortunately, we start writing scripts.
Mm.
I can't because, I'm not because, I don't follow because,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So these scripts are written inside of us. We don't even know it, but that's how we make our decisions all the time.
Yeah.
We don't rewrite the scripts because we don't think we can. Well, what we need to do really is rewrite the scripts to what we are,
Mm.
what we were created to be, which is a 10. Because the Lord doesn't look at his creation as anything but a 10. That's why he sent his son to die for us, right? He died for 10s,
Amen.
right? So the -10 is a work in progress. And we all have, I, I gave an answer to a coach who told me that, and he goes, "Oh, he did the same thing I did to you." And I went, "Oh, well, you're right.
Yeah.
I forgot I'm a 10. I got to go read Psalm 139 again. I'm wonderfully made. I was crafted in the womb. My members were fashioned,"
Mm.
right? So,
Yeah,
That's
the
good.
thief on the cross that Billy mentioned earlier. I'm sure he didn't think he was a 10 either.
oh, heck no. None of us do think that, by the way,
That's what I'm saying.
until we're reminded of
Yeah.
what we are. Maybe today is a reminding time of who you are, because you are a 10 in his eyes. And isn't that the
Yeah.
most important set of eyes?
Yeah. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
You know, we're actually called for dominion. That's what we're called for, all of us, for dominion. We were created in his identity, and he doesn't sit up there and negotiate with fake gods about splitting up the population of the planet, like in proportions, right? And then say, well, you fake god, you can have 10%, I'll have 10%. We're called for dominion. And I think when we remember that, you know, Jesus took 30 years to go and start his actual calling. Just think about that for a second. 30 years from birth. But nobody, if you go and look at the stories of Jesus in the New Testament, they're almost all in the last 18 months of his life. There's actually 2 years, like of unknown years, where he wasn't recognized, wasn't seen. He was just doing acts at a small level. And I think our flesh says, I should sow a seed for something and it should be miraculous and huge, and 200 people in the congregation and a building and whatever else in 36 seconds. And it took Jesus 2 years to
Yep.
get recognized. And maybe that's the
And what is
journey
a
all of
church?
us have to suck up. Go on, Jim.
What is actually a church? Because churches started in homes, people,
That's right. Yep.
right? There was no such thing as a building. In fact, the church that I finally went to when I said, "Okay, I'm never going to a church again," I'm like you, Bobby, and that's the last place I ever wanted. I was happy being in a Bible study until God said no. And I went to a church that started in a home that went to a building that had 300 people in. So we started at 5 and went to 300. And I was
Wow.
part of that. It was great. So the church is can start anywhere. It can start with a few brothers, a few families, right from your own home, and see where God takes it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So,
the crazy part of it.
Yeah.
I think I know of a elite business performance coach who's also a part-time pastor who would help you should you decide to pursue your calling in this arena.
Mhm.
Let me know if you want to talk to him. I'll sync you guys up.
That's a
But
gentle nudge.
but
Right.
I think but bro, I got to tell you, because of what you said a little while ago, like, yes, I have never seen a time where there are so many people speaking about Jesus and God on social media everywhere. I've never
Mhm.
seen a time where they've spoken about this more. And I think
Yeah.
part of it is trendy, right? Trump's in, and he's installing a big cross in the window of the White House, and there's all these things that are happening, so it's cool now. It's okay now. For those of us who, you know, looked at Fauci the first time he saw him and said, that dude's a shyster. Those of us like you and I who never believed, right, never fell for it. Like, what I'm saying is that there are still more people. You have a wider pool now of people seeking authenticity still. It is
Mhm.
still a huge commodity that people are looking for. And I think if you decided to pursue this and not, like Jeff said, don't don't put these things in your way. I don't need a building. All these things that you think you're going to need, you probably don't need. Okay. So my point is, I believe you will be able to find people, whether it's in your area or virtually, who actually want to be disciples,
I don't think you even
not
have to
who
find
just,
people. You don't even have to find people. People will
you
come.
don't. That's what I'm
Yeah, they
saying.
will. God will find them.
And that's what I mean. Like, you don't go marketing it. You just do what you are called to do, and people will start talking, and you be this place. Call it discipleship church. I don't care. You know what I mean? But be different, be what you're called, put out what God wants you to put out. If there's one person on this call, or 100 or 1,000, you do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So I think we're all kind of saying the same thing, but I think there is a niche there, and you could be a place that people who really want to be disciples go, not just to go and hear a song or two and hear a message and go home.
Brad, you asked a question a little while ago.
Hmm.
How do you bridge that gap
Mhm.
between believing and being a disciple? And Bobby, you said something a minute ago also of, I see all these guys that are these, great preachers and all that, and I'm not there. The thing that keeps coming back to me, and there's an old quote: the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. None of those pastors started off where they are now.
That's right.
They all had to start a path at some point and walk that path to get to where they are. And all of them look different. Some of them went to Bible college. Some of them are
Except for
just,
Joel Osteen.
School of Hard Knocks. Some of them
Sorry, Billy.
are that's right. Some of them are like Rob and didn't even know they were pastors. There's all different paths that you can be on. And Jesus said, I am the way.
Mm-hmm.
You can interpret that as I am the path.
Mm.
And the Bible says that I will order your steps. The word is a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. Something that God hit me with years ago when I was studying that verse: I am a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. If you're in a dark place and you're holding up a lamp, does it expose the entire path? Or does it expose the next couple of steps?
Next couple.
And as you take those next couple of steps, it exposes more and more and more. And I think, in a way, the answer to both of your questions there is just start. Seek God and just start taking those steps and follow. And, Rob, you made a great point about the people being afraid of the identity change. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles. And I think about like the rich young ruler. He wanted to follow Christ. Christ said, okay,
Yeah.
here's what you have to put down. He wasn't prepared to put that down.
That's right.
And we have to be prepared when the time comes to put the things down that are holding us back. And it could be a relationship, it could be doubt, it could be financial fears, it could be, we have to be prepared to lay that down to take those steps. But if we just start down that path, you said it really well about Brad a little while ago. He started that path, and now, Brad, you're so much further down that path than you even recognize.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, how do I get to a point where I'm making sure that I'm not just a believer and I'm living as a disciple, and yet what you're doing every couple of weeks is leading a podcast and putting it out to make sure that other people are hearing truth the way it needs to be taught. Were you doing that a few years ago? And I think we know the answer is no. So you're taking those steps. And what happens is when we follow God and we just focus on him, at some point we're going to stop and we're going to turn around and we're going to realize we're so much further down that path than we even realized. And we're so much more equipped and so much better off than we realized. And you said also, Bobby, and I love what you said, not discounting anything that Jeff said. When you said that you're a negative 10, it also reminded me the scripture says to have sober judgment of yourself. And I feel like if you had said, God put it on me to start a church, I got this. I'm a 10. I'm going for it. I'd be worried about you
Yeah.
because you're not leaving any room for God to do what he needs to do through it if you're doing that.
Mhm.
So yet seeing ourselves through God's eyes, and Jeff's exactly right. He sees us as a 10. He believes in us irrespective of how much we believe in him. And if he's calling you to do that, then he's going to surround you with what you need to be able to do it. And then you're going to see miracle after miracle after miracle. And you're going to say, how in the world do I manage to pull this? I can't do that. And then somebody steps up and says, I can. Let me help you with that. I can't afford to do this. I've got money. Let me pay for that for you. All these things are going to start to happen when, and kind of back to Brad's point, when you start building that church with your focus on God and not what can I do? God told me to do it, so now I got to run with it. It's God told me to do it, so let me do it with him. With him as the focus, and then let me do my part and let him build his church. And let's just see what happens.
I'm not gonna lie. I didn't expect any of this to happen today. So
Jeff said today's the day.
yeah,
He thought he was talking about himself.
Yeah, I thought I was literally like going. I was tired this morning. I'm not feeling it today, and now you guys are just like hitting me with all sorts of words. But I appreciate everything you guys are saying. God is. I'm gonna be praying about it. Let me just say that.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Amen.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I was to confess something, Bobby, I speak in front of a lot of people every year. I can honestly tell you that I never feel like I'm good enough or ready enough.
Yeah.
Mm.
I never
agree
feel
with
like
that.
I know enough about business. I spoke in front of 5,500 people in one event last year, and
Wow.
I was like, it felt like a train smash. My repetitive word usage, I use the phrase right too often, and basically, and I watched it back, and I felt like I was in the UFC ring, but beating myself up. And
Mm.
and then people start contacting you and telling you, oh, you said this and it made such a big difference in my life.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and
my version of negative 10 was their version of 1,000. Like they were like, this
Right.
rocked my world. And I think the hardest thing for all of us is to understand that it's nothing about us.
That's right.
Mhm.
So
I
And
remember
Rob, they
the,
didn't care. They didn't care how many times you used a certain word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't hear that. You're the only one that heard
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I remember when I started off and was led to this church in this guy's house, and I showed up with my 4 little babies at the time, and we made up half the church, me and my family. We walked in the door, and the church just doubled in size. And I was sitting on the couch in his house, and I remember him asking me. He said, "You really are great at sharing testimonies of God and what he does in your life, because I'm just fired up about what God does in my life. He said, would you mind sharing at the church on Sundays? And I'm like, well, there's 5 people here. I mean, what's the harm, right? What harm could I do? That's my thought. What harm could I do? Is that just so immature? And I didn't think like it was a calling, a great calling or anything. But then the church started to grow, right?
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I was thrown in front of 10 people, then 20 people, then 30 people. Oh my gosh, we're building a church building. Why? Can't we just stay in the home? Next thing there's hundreds of people, and I have a mic in front of the congregation. I'm thinking, I never, ever wanted to be in this spot. And yet, that's where God wanted me.
Hmm.
But I fought it, but I felt responsible every time I put that mic in my hand. So I get it, Bobby. I get it. I still have those fears today of not wanting to do what God called me to do. Okay. I don't think there's a man on this podcast that doesn't feel that way in some way, inefficient in some way. So I think we're all there in some regard,
Yep. Yeah, Bobby, and again, if you're serious about it, or if you feel led to do it, I will put you in touch with an elite business performance coach who is a part-time
what
pastor.
A plug. What a plug.
Of a
This podcast brought to you
small-
today by
small community church in a
Exactly.
different country where disciples are being made, and he can help you out.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
So you were saying, Bobby?
Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, that's it. You done?
Yeah, I'm good. That's all. I'm absorbing it all.
He's not saying
Bobby,
any more.
like, next topic.
Yep. Next.
He's not going to
Next.
say anything more in
Yep.
case he gets more God unleashed on him. It's like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think too. I think the fact of the matter is that this is confirmation, which is bad in some ways because it's been confirmed for so long, and I've been running the opposite way, but I've been compromising with that calling by saying, God, I'm gonna help. I'm just gonna do it in my workforce. I'm gonna be unashamed everywhere I go. I'm preaching to everywhere I go. So I'm good. So that's where I'm at, And so, again, we'll see. Only God knows, or God already knows, but only God will have to lead me there.
Yep.
If I could share something, there was the bit I became aware of, and I can't remember whereabouts in the Bible it says this. My brain's gone mud to mush. Somebody's far cleverer than me, but it says something about like you'll be judged to a higher level when you start
Yep.
like basically preaching.
That's right.
And I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I can't remember what verse it is that says that. And I've decided to view it as a gift. If I'm going to be judged to a higher level, that means there's me getting more like Jesus. Right? That's what it is. And you can see it. We can see it all as a threat. But if we were to see that as a gift, as another push to elevate ourselves further, maybe actually all of this is the biggest gift ever.
Mm.
So you have a lot to think about, man,
Amen. Yep.
and pray about, and all that.
Yes. Yes.
Indeed. Well, we're here for you, man. If you have questions, or if you have, again, the trap I will try to help you avoid getting into is something that's already been said earlier. And you're probably going to go into a CEO type mode, and you're going to start trying to list all the things you need. I need to do. I need this. 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 When you're starting a business, same thing. I need this. I need this. I need this. I need this. And I just want to try to help you avoid that trap, because that's going to prevent you from taking the next step and then crossing the finish line to where you're holding your first service, if that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I think for me, like I'm not even at that thought process. I'm at the thought process of am I enough? Am I worthy to and to to just be at the head of other people and leading other people? Am I worthy enough? Like
You just said a while ago that God has been telling you to do it for years.
I know.
If you weren't, why would he do that?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just my own. Like I said, I'm a -10 in right now. So I
think you need to embrace that, honestly, because I think if you went to any senior pastor of any successful church and asked them, do you feel like you're worthy to be in this position? They would probably tell you no.
yeah.
Yeah, I never
Yeah.
The
felt
ones who say
worthy. I
yes,
agree.
run from.
Yeah, right. The ones
Bobby,
that say,
I spent-
I'm going to save you, run from.
Yeah. But Bobby, I spend my entire working life observing humans and observing their potential. And there is everything inside of me that says you are the guy to do this. And that there is zero reason why you cannot be epically successful. I look at Olympians. I can tell you whether an Olympian's going to get a medal or not 2 years before the Olympics. Like CEOs, the whole lot. Right, I've got whether it's God given or it's intuition or whatever it is. I observe people and I observe like what are those talents they can multiply. If I lived in Texas and you had a church, I would sit in those pews and I would soak up like a sponge what it is that you offer, because I think you have so much to offer.
Yeah, and the thing is, bro, you gotta have you. Rob, tell me if I'm wrong, bro, but I think he needs to have God help him define success, not define it himself.
I don't even think we have to define success. Success is simply finding a few people to go and bring together and talk to once a week about our love for God. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, that's so true, Rob. And by the way, let's not forget to all pray for Bobby today, before we exclude or get out of this podcast. But thank you for sharing your transparency there, Bobby. But you know, if you were just to lead 5 people that went out and changed the world, isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes the church is your children, and your children go out and do these things that you always wanted to do.
Amen.
Right? So it's important that you recognize it's not the amount of people, it's what God does in your heart to impact who he brought you. I think Billy Graham came from, I don't know, but I know that he came from someone else, but he became one of the greatest evangelists in the history of the world, you know, but the guy who coached him wasn't. And so you got to be thinking about that, you know, as well, just sitting here pondering.
Yep. Well, all right, guys. It sounds like
can I just pray for Bobby right now? Would that be all right?
Bro, I was going to call on you, Coach. I was going to call on you anyway. So God told you in advance. That's okay. Yes, of course.
Sorry, it just came out. Lord, I want to thank you for that just arriving. I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to witness transformation in Bobby as he sits with us right here, right now, today. Lord, I want to thank you for passing him the gift and the calling, but also for his willingness to share it today as it's caught him and in honesty caught me and probably caught everybody else around here. I want to thank you so much for giving us the role model of your only son, for us to know that we can start as humble as he did, and that you will guide the way for where we all go to. I want us to hold all of our hearts and heads in the best possible way as we go forward together as a group of men, but also independently at the end of this call, and strive to take action in your name, not just thought in your name, and support 1 or 100,000 other human beings to do the same, or maybe more. Please shower Bobby with everything that he needs to have the confidence to go and magnify his talents and his love for you to a much wider audience. And please allow all of us to pray for him and magnify our own talents more in the week to come. In your name.
Yeah.